Imagine being trapped inside your own body. You cannot speak. You cannot call for help. You cannot explain pain. Every movement depends on someone else. Every meal, every bath, every turn in bed. Now imagine someone violates that trust in the worst possible way. And nobody discovers it for 9 months. Not because you stayed silent, because silence was the only option you had. On December 29, 2018, inside a long-term care facility in Phoenix, Arizona, staff gathered around a patient's bed. The woman was 29 years old. She had lived with severe brain damage since a near-drowning accident in childhood. She had been inside care facilities since she was 3. She was nonverbal and required help with nearly everything. She could not walk away from danger. She could not identify an attacker. She could not tell her family what had happened. That morning, caregivers first believed she had another medical problem. Then they saw something no one expected. The woman was giving birth. A baby boy was arriving beside her bed. The truth became impossible to hide. She had been pregnant for nearly 9 months. And the people responsible for her daily care said they never knew. That claim created a terrifying question. How could an entire pregnancy remain invisible inside a healthcare facility? This was not someone living alone. Staff monitored her meals, hygiene, medication, weight, and physical condition. They changed her clothes. They moved her body. They recorded changes in her behavior. Yet somehow, pregnancy was not recognized until labor began. As investigators reconstructed the previous months, the warning signs became disturbing. Her abdomen had grown. Her weight had increased. But staff reportedly blamed constipation and overeating. Instead of receiving a pregnancy test, her calories were reduced. Instead of prenatal care, she was given laxatives. Month after month, the pregnancy continued. No routine examination exposed it. No one raised an alarm strong enough to uncover the truth. Then came the day before the birth. Caregivers documented unusual behavior. She was restless. She moaned repeatedly. Her arms and legs moved wildly. She appeared to be in visible distress. For a woman who could not describe pain, behavior was her language. Those movements may have been the closest thing she had to screaming. Yet records showed no physician evaluated her that day. The next morning, labor began. Only then did the facility understand what her body had been revealing. But the birth was not the end of the mystery. It was the beginning of a criminal investigation. Police needed to answer the question nobody wanted to imagine. Who had access to her? Who had entered her room? Who had been trusted to care for someone completely defenseless? Medical examinations found evidence of sexual assault. The investigation indicated she had been assaulted vaginally and anally. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a consensual relationship. Consent was impossible. The victim could not communicate agreement. She depended on caregivers for survival. Every person around her held power. One of them had abused it. Investigators collected DNA samples from male employees. Then the results identified the baby's biological father. He was a licensed practical nurse who had cared for the woman. His name was Nathan Sutherland. The accused was not a stranger. He was part of the system meant to protect her. He had access. He had authority. He had the appearance of trust. And according to the evidence, he used that access to assault someone who could never report him. Sutherland was arrested in January 2019. It was horrifying enough that the assault occurred. But the hidden pregnancy created another level of outrage. For months, a vulnerable woman's body changed in plain sight. For months, the facility failed to identify what was happening. For months, the unborn child developed without prenatal care. The crime exposed more than one offender. It exposed gaps in supervision, medical oversight, and accountability. The facility's chief executive resigned. Regulators demanded changes. Families of other patients began asking frightening questions. Could this happen to someone else? Were other warning signs being ignored? Should male caregivers work alone with vulnerable female patients? How often should unexplained physical changes trigger outside evaluation? And who truly speaks for a patient who cannot speak for herself? In 2021, Sutherland pleaded guilty to sexual assault and abuse of a vulnerable adult. He received a 10-year prison sentence. He also received credit for nearly 3 years already spent in custody. For many people, that punishment felt painfully small. A woman lost the most basic right to bodily safety. A child was conceived through violence. A family discovered the truth only during an emergency birth. Yet the sentence could be measured in a single decade. That is why this case still creates anger. The legal system measures crimes through statutes, plea agreements, evidence, and sentencing rules. But betrayal does not fit neatly into those calculations. Neither does the terror of knowing the victim could never testify in her own words. There is also a deeper problem. People with severe disabilities are often treated as though vulnerability makes them invisible. Their pain may be misread. Their behavior may be dismissed. Their bodies may be discussed without truly being observed. When they cannot describe abuse, protection must become stronger, not weaker. That means careful documentation, independent medical reviews, strict rules about private access, immediate investigation of unexplained injuries or physical changes. It also means listening to behavior. A moan can be a warning. Restlessness can be a message. A sudden change in weight, sleep, appetite, or movement can be evidence. The person may not have words, but the body still speaks. This case should never have required childbirth to reveal a crime. The pregnancy itself was a months-long alarm. The distress before labor was another. The victim's complete dependence should have demanded constant protection. Instead, the truth arrived as a baby took his first breath. That is the detail people cannot forget. A newborn entered the world and exposed what every adult around his mother had failed to see. The story forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality. Safety is not created by locked doors, uniforms, or medical titles. Safety exists only when people remain alert, accountable, and willing to question what seems unusual. Trust without oversight can become opportunity. Routine without attention can hide suffering. Silence does not mean nothing happened. Sometimes silence means the victim had no possible way to tell us. So the final question is not only why one man committed this crime. The larger question is how an entire system failed to notice. What protections should have existed? What warning signs should have triggered action? And how severe should punishment be when someone targets a person who cannot resist, report, or escape? Some cases haunt us because they are mysterious. This one haunts us because the truth was present for months. It was visible in her body and distress. It was visible in every moment she depended on others. The people least able to defend themselves deserve the strongest protection. Not sympathy without action. Not policies without enforcement. Real protection. Because when a person cannot speak, everyone responsible for their care must listen even harder.